two main issues are before European leaders. The first, the most urgent, financing for Ukraine. Will we get a deal on the Russian assets?
Well, I hope so, because we have to. Putin is banking on us to fail, and we can't give him that.
And so what gives you that sort of confidence in terms of getting there? Do you think that have you heard anything from the Belgians? Do you think that there is the sort of will there? We've heard Friedrich Merz in the last couple of days really throw his weight behind this. Is that going to be helpful?
Well, there are a lot of European leaders who are supporting this, and of course also addressing the concerns that Belgium has. I mean, over the last weeks and days, there have been a lot of negotiation. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get there. President Costa has said that we are not leaving the meeting until we have a deal. How long the meeting will last, that is a question.
So I guess you'll be locking the doors. In terms of the agreement, we're hearing now from the Belgian Prime Minister speaking before Parliament. He appears to be doubling down on this idea that they're still very resistant to using the Russian assets. Is there a path that excludes Belgium that would touch those assets? Is that on the table?
Well, Belgium has the majority of the assets, so I think many member states have also said that they want to be confident that Belgium feels comfortable with the solution. But as I see it, Belgium is under a lot of pressure from Russia, from all of Europeans, also from United States. And in order to, release that pressure, we should do the European legislative proposal, because then it's Europe that is responsible, all of us responsible, and it takes the burden off Belgium.
But this is something I think I found very confusing from the very beginning. The Belgian sort of concerns about this seem very, very reasonable. And, of course, 27 member states, or let's say 25, backing up 140 billion euros doesn't seem impossible. It's hard for me to understand really the crux of what is at issue here, because this seems like a reasonable concern and something that the EU is really eminently able to resolve.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I think, again, if we have the European proposal, then Belgium is just abiding the law. So anybody who has anything to say against can go to court against the European Union, which means that everybody, all the European countries are liable.
And I'd like to frame this in a much larger context and how you see this, because I think it's very hard, no matter how you feel about the Russian assets, to hear every day for 4 years from European leaders how important it is to support Ukraine, and then the moment of leverage for the Europeans, really their last remaining point of leverage on the Russian assets, unable to get it over the line. What does that say about European power and about sort of cohesion within Europe if they're not able to get this over the line, just given the rhetoric we've heard for the last 4 years?
Well, it shows that we are 27 very strong democracies. I mean, and in democracies you have discussions and debates, and everybody comes with their domestic issues as well. But I think, also we have had some very difficult moments in the past, but eventually we all come together and come to the decision. Considering that Belgium's concerns also have been addressed recently, I really truly hope that we get this over the line.
And I'd like to talk also about the Ukrainian peace plan, the 20-point plan, in terms of what the European contributions are to that. What have you seen of the plan? Are you satisfied with its current state as it goes into those negotiations with Russia this weekend?
Well, there's a strong push for peace. That is very clear, and especially the Ukrainians really want to have peaceful Christmas. But it's a bit one-sided, because Russia hasn't agreed to any of the points. If we, saw yesterday also Putin making these maximalist claims that they are taking what they want, either militarily or around the negotiation table. I think this shows that they don't have any genuine interest to negotiate. So we need to go from the place where they are pretending to negotiate to actually pushing them into a place where they need to negotiate.
And talking also about one of the main sort of issues around that peace proposal, the so-called security guarantees. We now have the United States saying that they're backing Article 5-like guarantees. I've yet to find anyone who can really define what an Article 5-like guarantee is. What, in your understanding, is an Article 5-like guarantee?
Article 5-like guarantee is that, if you are attacked, then others will come to help you, those who have promised to come to help you. Like we have, in NATO, Article 5 says attack on one is attack on all. Of course, these security guarantees have to be really tangible, not on paper, but really how how many
Yes.
troops somebody is contributing, what capabilities, how does it work in
Are
practice.
we approaching that, do you think?
Well, the talks are ongoing, and I really do hope that we get very, very concrete security guarantees, not just on paper that Ukraine has had before.
And we've heard Friedrich Merz actually in the last couple of days saying for the first time, I believe, that the Germans would be open to the idea of putting troops potentially in Ukraine. How important do you think that is, getting the backing of the Germans on that?
It is very important. Germany is the most important and biggest country in Europe, so definitely strong words from the leader of Germany are helpful.
And there were, of course, this national security strategy put out by the Trump administration just over a week ago. We now had a response from Ursula von der Leyen saying that this is Europe's independence moment. How do you translate that independence moment from a sort of line of rhetoric into the implications for what European policy should be vis-a-vis what is sort of unambiguously a much more hostile United States to the EU?
Well, we have already done a lot of steps when it comes to, boosting our own defense, boosting our own defense industry. I mean, working on those tracks, but also diversifying our trade portfolios, for example, not to have all the eggs in the one basket. And that's why we also have today the Mercosur discussions, which I also hope that we get over the line.
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to go next on Mercosur. We heard, maybe trade is not your sort of primary concern, but your concern about the president's attitudes of Brazil towards the European Union will be one of your concerns. He says if we don't finalize this agreement now, Brazil will not pursue the trade deal during his presidency. So how important is it to get this deal signed by Saturday?
It is important that we move with this because, if we zoom out, the picture is such that we have huge problems with the economic coercive practices by China. So we need to diversify our trade portfolios so that we are not dependent on one single player when it comes to critical raw materials, when it comes to different aspects. And therefore, Mercosur agreement is really, really important because it makes the trade area of 700 million people, which gives a lot of opportunities for our companies.
It seems to me that there's a connection between Mercosur and the deal on Ukraine in the sense that this is one of the last opportunities for the Europeans to really take control of their destiny before the end of the year, which has been a very challenging year in terms of geopolitics, being stuck in the passenger seat, and really defining what Europe is about. Is this a continent that is about free trade with Mercosur? Is it about a continent that can back up its allies when they're being invaded and really make those difficult decisions? Do you see this meeting today in quite those terms?
Yes, definitely. It's a very important meeting in different terms, like you mentioned, also where we are able to deal with the problems that are happening on our continent and whether we are also able to boost our competitiveness and give opportunities for our companies, because that means prosperity. And if we have prosperity, we also have the economic strength that makes us geopolitical power. So yes, it's all very much interconnected.
And I want to get also your perspective on the U.S. desire to reestablish economic ties with Russia. How concerning you think that is from a European perspective? And does there need to be, in a sort of pragmatic worldview, a Europe that begins to think about the day after and what economic ties with Russia could look like?
Well, Russia is not a rule of law country, and we have seen, companies being nationalized. So I say good luck with that.